Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you guys for joining me for yet another Steelers training camp practice report. There's also some other stuff that we want to talk about here today. Before we get into the practice report, but make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we got you guys covered with extensive Steelers coverage every single day. Tomorrow, the Steelers will be traveling to Jacksonville for their preseason game against the Jags on Saturday evening. So tomorrow I'll be having my preview for that, and it'll be a lot of fun, guys. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button because we're going to have extensive Steelers coverage on this channel every single day, all throughout the 2025 NFL season. All right, so we'll start here with a couple of signings that the Pittsburgh Steelers made earlier today. Both these guys ended up practicing today with the team. Quarterback Logan Woodside, somebody that has worked with Arthur Smith in the past, both in Tennessee and with the Atlanta Falcons, was signed today after the Will Howard injury. And Woodside is there to pretty much just take up those extra reps with the third and fourth team units, take up some snaps. Maybe not this week in the preseason game. Mike Tomlin left the door open for him to play against the Jaguars on Saturday, but he did not participate in team drills today. Obviously, it's his first day in the building, doesn't know the whole playbook or anything like that. So we'll see what ends up happening with Woodside, but with Howard likely out for the entire preseason, he's there to eat up snaps and compete with Skylar Thompson for a potential role here to start the season as the third string quarterback. Then they also signed Andrus Peat, the longtime veteran offensive lineman today. Pete has played a lot at left guard. He was there with the New Orleans Saints for many years, but he played with the Las Vegas Raiders last year. Didn't have a great season, if I'm being completely honest, and if I'm being completely frank with you guys, he hasn't been like a good NFL offensive lineman since I was in high school, 2017. Kind of range there. So he's got a lot of experience. He's played both inside and outside. He was practicing with the tackles today, so it seems like the team is bringing him in as tackle insurance with Calvin Anderson out, with Broderick Jones having an up-and-down camp. We'll talk about Broderick later in the show, by the way. But Dylan Cook has actually looked pretty good in camp so far as well. But Pete is there as extra veteran depth along this offensive line. And I don't hate the signing at all, especially because he's not being brought in here to play a starting role. Okay, so those are the two signings. Then we can move on to what Adam Schefter from ESPN reported today with some contract disputes that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going through right now. First one with first-team All-Pro defensive tackle Cam Heyward. He's not practicing in team periods. He hasn't for a while. He did start training camp working in the team periods, but he kind of shut himself down because he wants a pay raise heading into the 2025 season. Most of his money in cash earned this year was in a roster bonus that he got back, I believe, in March, and his base salary is extremely low. Heading into the year, he probably wants a little bit of a pay raise, considering that the Steelers have quite a bit of cap space available for this season, and he's coming off an All-Pro season, and he's the heart and soul of this team, and frankly, I think Cam Heyward completely deserves to get a little bit of a pay raise here. It's possible they move some of his roster bonus in the 2026 season on his contract and convert that into a signing bonus so that Cam can get a little bit more money this year. And then if that's the case and that's the route they go down, they're going to have to restructure his deal once again next offseason because his cap hit and his cash flow would just be super, super low if that's the decision that they end up making. But guys, I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. Cam clearly wants to be with this team this year. He wants to retire as Steeler. Of course, last year he had that big dispute with his contract that took us all the way to September 6th before he got his contract done with the Steelers last offseason, last training camp. So who knows how long this is going to take. But Heyward is the type of guy where, we saw it last year. He didn't practice a whole lot during Steelers training camp, but he was able to go out there and have an all-pro caliber season. And you can even argue this is kind of a blessing in disguise for him because it's going to keep him more fresh as the NFL season goes on because he's not expelling too much energy in Latrobe this year. So I'm not too worried about that at all. I do think they're going to come to some sort of agreement at some point, and he will be a Pittsburgh Steeler this year. There's definitely not going to be a trade or anything like that. Another player that's looking for a contract, a raise here, is Chris Boswell, the kicker, and this is, once again, guys, something that I expect to get done and something that I think Chris Boswell, frankly, really does deserve. I mean, he's been, in my opinion, the best kicker in football for a while now. And I think, he just wants to get compensated to, be able to reflect that. And I think that will end up happening. And I think that is absolutely worth it. Steelers have like $30 million in cap space available to them at this point, heading into the season. So it shouldn't be an issue to get Cam Heyward and Chris Boswell taken care of before we get to week 1 against the New York Jets. All right, so now going over to practice today, there was a number of players that did not practice today. Cam Heyward, Calvin Austin III remained out. This was his 4th straight practice being out. DK Metcalf had a vet day today. Jonnu Smith, who's been dealing with some knee kind of soreness, practiced yesterday but had an off day today. DJ Thomas Jones had a day off today. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith were both down today. Corey Trice Jr. is still out with his hamstring injury. Dante Kent was out again. Jalen Ramsey, Calvin Anderson, and Will Howard were the names that did not practice for the Pittsburgh Steelers today. But it was a fully padded practice, and it was certainly competitive out there. A lot of starters not out there today, but Rodgers was out there. And a lot of players that are going to be out there during the preseason game on Saturday were getting their work in. A couple of injury notes during the practice. Roman Wilson was being stretched out with his hips at certain points during team periods today. He didn't come out. He was able to fully participate in practice today, and even with the hip issue that he was dealing with, he was able to come back and play. So another player that left to get checked out by trainers but ended up coming back was DeMarvin Leal, the outside linebacker, defensive lineman. It sounded like it kind of looked like he had a shoulder or neck issue. And last year, that's kind of significant, guys, because he did have a neck issue last year that took him out for the rest of the season. But he was able to come back to practice, so that's all good news. 7 shots today. Once again, the offense won. That is their 3rd straight win. The breakdown of it, Jalen Warren had a rushing touchdown to start. Then Derek Harmon had a pressure on Aaron Rodgers, which forced an incompletion on the 2nd play. Then Rodgers threw a touchdown pass to Brandon Johnson on the 3rd play. There was a combined PBU from Y.A. Black and Juan Thornhill on a Mason Rudolph pass to Lance McCutcheon on the 4th play. Rudolph threw to Evan Hull, the running back, for a touchdown on the 5th play. Then you had Skylar Thompson throwing to Keyshawn Williams for a touchdown, and then Rodgers threw a touchdown to Scotty Miller, but it ended up being called incomplete because Miller did not get his 2 feet in at the end. But really impressive throw by Rodgers to fit it into a tight window. Apparently it was sidearmed, so good stuff there from Rodgers. So the offense won today 4-3, and that ties up the 7 shots battle between the offense and the defense, 5-5. Heading into the final week of Latrobe practices next week when they return from Jacksonville. So it's definitely coming down to the wire here, and it's going to be exciting to see if the offense or the defense wins the 7 shots camp battle next week. Now we can move on to some offensive notes that I had today. Not the most to take away from today's practice, if I'm being completely honest with you, with so many projected starters not out there today, but Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay were both full participants today, so that was good to see them back out there. And, a note that I have on Aaron Rodgers is that even though Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay, the 2 starting outside corners, were out there today, full participants going up against the ones, Rodgers was still dealing out there, even without DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III, 2 of your 3 starting receivers this year, and he was hitting guys like Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller. He was distributing the ball well today. Once again, the short and intermediate accuracy was really on point. Lots of downfield completions, particularly with him and Roman. He had a nice crossing route on a play action to Roman where he had a nice kind of catch outside of his frame. That was really good to see. And just seeing Rodgers and Roman have a really good week of practice together. Every single practice this week, Rodgers and Roman were able to really connect, with Calvin being out with that injury all week. And with DK off the field, once again, Roman got a lot of action today, so that's great to see. But the one thing that I will say about Aaron Rodgers is that the final step that he needs to take before, I really feel comfortable saying that, he's going to be really, really freaking good this year, is he still needs to work a little bit on the connection with his receivers, throwing the ball down the field. When he's throwing it deep down the field, 20-plus air yards down the field, the accuracy still sometimes he can get away from it. He has kind of this issue of overthrowing his receivers. He's had quite a few overthrows on deep kind of passes this year, whether it's DK, whether it's Roman, whether it's Scotty, on those true like 9-route types of plays, I would say that is still the area where Rodgers still has some of those accuracy inconsistencies still pop up, but overall he's looked fantastic. Apparently, he's been doing no-look passes and he's manipulating the defense with his eyes and doing all the things that we expect out of one of the most intelligent quarterbacks in NFL history. So really good stuff from Rodgers and Roman. I also want to give a quick shout out here to some offensive linemen, the 2 young offensive tackles for this team. Both had good practices today. Broderick Jones had a really good week of practice. So, after a really rough start for Broderick, he dealt with a groin injury. He's getting better from that. Once the pads went on this week, man, he has looked pretty darn good. And he, even though TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith really aren't practicing all that much, he's still stonewalling like Nick Herbig, who is a legit NFL pass rusher, who was top 15, I think, last year in pressure rate, and he's stonewalling him. He's doing a good job against Jack Sawyer today. He's just doing a good job, and Broderick looks like he could be someone that could be a legitimate starter on the left side for the Steelers this year, which is abundantly good news. Obviously, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on him during the preseason game on Saturday and then the other 2 preseason games, because Broderick is such an important piece to the puzzle here on offense for the Steelers this season. And then Troy Fautanu, the second-year player out of Washington at right tackle, once again, a really good practice. He's had a really good week as well. So to see these 2 young guys that are so important to the Steelers' success this year really hit a groove this week was really, really good news. And then when it comes to the backups today, the person that really stood out to me once again was Rock Taylor, the Memphis UDFA wide receiver. Another dig route, 15-yard dig route that he has just been automatic with in the third-team offense this year. And he had, I think, like a 25-yard back shoulder ball thrown from Skylar Thompson as well. Taylor just makes plays on the football. He gets open. He's not the most gifted athlete in the world, but he's got great size, really great hands. He tracks the ball extremely well in the air. It just seems like he's a good football player. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to bring on Saturday in Stadium there in Jacksonville. Then the only really defensive note that I have today, guys, is that the younger defensive tackles, the rookie defensive tackle pairing for the Steelers this year, Derek Harmon and Y.A. Black, both had fantastic days once again today. Harmon had that pressure on Rodgers in 7 shots. He had a PBU, or he had a TFL against Caleb Johnson in the run period today. And then Y.A. Black continues to look good against the run, and then he continues to bat down passes. And, Y.A. Black coming out of Iowa for me, guys, was somebody that I didn't think was going to provide a whole lot of value to the defense in terms of pass rush, but in terms of pass coverage, his ability to get his hand on the football. We saw it with Cam Heyward last year where, he had an incredible amount of PBUs, batted down passes for a defensive tackle. That's part of, playing passing defense. And, that can be a way that Black, even though he's not the most disruptive player in the world, can bring value to this Steelers pass rush and to this passing defense when he's out there on the field on third downs and in obvious passing situations. So really good to see those 2 players look like that they're hits, and those are 2 other players I'm really excited to see in the stadium on Saturday. So that'll be it for today's practice report, guys. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today. Tomorrow I'll be back in the studio to talk about the players on the Steelers roster that I'm most excited to watch play on Saturday night. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until tomorrow, guys, here we go, Steelers.